And welcome in to Press Box Live. Want to remind you that we are brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. And before I do the whole commercial, I want to welcome Jack Voigt as our guest tonight. Ross Grimsley has the night off. Jack, how are you, my friend? You doing okay, Jack?
Yep, doing great. Just typical stuff with Zoom and internet connections and all that, but let's try and make
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Just be
this work.
patient. If we freeze up, we'll just be patient. Jack Voigt is my guest. He played for the Orioles and three other Major League Baseball clubs in a 7-year Major League career and then a 17-year coaching career. We're going to talk to Jack about a lot of the things he's doing now with J. Voigt Baseball in the Sarasota area. But first, I do need to tell you that Press Box Live is brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. And as I like to say each week on these Zooms on Mondays and Wednesdays, if you own a house and you have a roof fix or you have to replace the whole roof, it's going to be the most expensive piece of business you'll do on your house. And you've got to have people you trust. I like the guys at C3 American Exteriors. I know them and I trust them. So again, C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website, c3america.com, to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. Jack, I gave the particulars about a 7-year Major League career and a 17-year coaching career. I had not really thought about you as a 17-year coach. Man, that's a long time.
Yeah, very long time. Actually, a little bit longer than what my playing career was professionally. If you start from 1987, when I was drafted by Baltimore and started in the New York Penn League when they used to have a team in Newark, New York, just south of Rochester, and but very enjoyable. Did a lot of things. Worked with a couple different organizations. Most recently, 12 years finishing with the Mets in 2017. A lot of different roles all over the place. AAA hitting, coordinating, outfield, base running. Worked with the Orioles in a couple different roles, and then they had some changes. So it's been very rewarding. But I've moved on from that now and into the next phase, which is
before we start
helping a lot of our younger kids down here in the Sarasota Bradenton area.
Before we start talking about your work with J. Voigt Baseball, I did want to ask you, I had forgotten where you went to college. So you were out of LSU in 87. Did you cross paths with Ben McDonald then at LSU?
Ben was a freshman my last year there. I was a junior and was drafted by Baltimore, and I signed as a junior. But Ben had just joined the club there, coming to college there in 1987 as a freshman. So yeah, we were there together, and it was enjoyable. But Ben knows he ended my college career when he gave up the grand slam to Paul Carey from Stanford.
Yeah, Ben had an interesting career at the major league level. It wasn't quite what we anticipated it would be and hoped it would be, but he had a very good career. And it's interesting how he now has a second act in Baltimore as a color analyst on probably about 70 or 80 Oriole telecasts, and he does a super job on them right now. And I guess you're enjoying watching him a little bit on the College World Series stuff right now.
Yeah, I kind of lost you a little bit there. I think you were asking about Ben doing the color stuff. He's great. I mean, he's so personable and he knows the game, but yet he can kind of, what I consider when I've worked with people doing some different things with TV or whatever, being able to kind of dumb the game down a little bit. So you're not always talking in the technical terms and trying to show you're the smartest guy out there. You're trying to show people that you can explain the game in the simplest terms. And that's how I think people can enjoy the game better.
Do you find that that's what you need to do now in your role teaching young players how to play the game? Do you have to sort of it sometimes can be an insulting thing to say you're dumbing it down, but you do have to bring down something that you're highly attuned to to a level that young players can understand.
Well, and it's not just young players, Stan. I mean, even working with some professional players, like you said, it's not dumbing it down. It's in a way, it's trying to make it more simple. I mean,
Yeah.
this game, if you think about it, is really a simple game. Catch the ball, throw the ball, catch it again. Try and move up 90 feet as close as you can to score at home plate and touch home plate more than the other team. But you can make it as difficult as you want to make it. And sometimes I think that's the problem that has been going on is you can almost have too much information, and now you get overrun with everything and you forget to just be an athlete and to react, have a plan, of course, going up there, but there's almost too much stuff going on right now that takes the place of see the ball, hit the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball. And if you know a guy does a certain thing, play him over there because he's probably not going to change by the time they get to that level.
So tell me a little bit about Jack Voigt baseball. You have your own facility in the Sarasota area, and that's a great irony again that you were born in Sarasota and now the Orioles train in Sarasota, but you came back home after your professional career.
Yes, sir. And spent a lot of time here. I've been doing the private lessons for, probably over 30 years. Used to do them at an outdoor facility, not even a facility, just outdoor batting cages at the local fields. And then was able to get into a different facility here in town. And they were probably going to be doing some different things from what they told me. So kind of forced my hand to go out on my own. And I was able to luckily find a building owner that was willing to work with me a little bit in the middle of a pandemic, opening last July, and kind of put some things in. So we've got a nice place here. I can still do my private lessons. I have some other instructors. I've got about 5 full cages with good machines, good balls, pitching instructor in here. So I've been able to max out what I could and be able to basically open it up to memberships, and also teams can come in and rent the cages also.
It's interesting. So the kids that you work with, first of all, because and you and I talked last night off the air, and we're going to get into a little bit about your opinion of the state of the game right now, which is kind of interesting. And I think we share some of the same things. But I did want to talk to you. Are you working equally with boys and girls, or is it like 10% girls, 90% guys? Because it seems like the popularity of women's softball is really pretty high now.
Oh, sure. Especially in this area of Florida. I mean, not just baseball being very competitive in the area with, my high school that I went to, Venice High School, has had 4 or 5 state championships in the last 10 years. This year, they got beat in the regional, but another local private school out of Door Academy, they won a state championship in the 2A division, 6A, I believe it was, Lakewood Ranch softball. They won the state title this year, and probably would have won it last year had the pandemic not been around. So it's very competitive, but my lesson schedule is basically almost half and half. And, the girls that are around, unless they're a left-handed slap and run and a slapper technique, the softball swing is a fast pitch softball is a lot like the baseball swing. If you watch any of the Women's College World Series, those girls, they load, they stride, they drive from their backside. And a lot of them, to tell you the truth, can have a lot better swings than some of the boys, not because the boys don't have good swings, but the girls will listen a lot more. The girls will listen to suggestion. They'll listen to constructive criticism, and then move forward from there. Sometimes the boys think they have it all figured out. We were probably all that way when we were, 12, 14, 16, 18 years old, but they're all enjoyable. And I just like to see them all get better and realize what they can, the potential they can get to.
The boys will listen when they're having problems. The girls understand that they need to get better, and they're much more open to suggestion, I would think.
Sure. I mean, the boys understand too that they have to get better if they want to play on some of these very competitive high school teams in the area. But it's not just about coming in and taking a lesson for 30 minutes once a week. There's got to be a lot of other work being done on their own. And I'm a big proponent, as I tell a lot of my people. I do a Motivation Monday on our social media each week, and you don't get better with one lesson a week. You've got to do a lot of work, and the best players I know probably did more work when no one was watching than when somebody was around.
We're talking with Jack Voigt, ex-Baltimore Oriole, who played 7 years in the big leagues, 17 years as a coach, both at the major league level and minor league level. And a couple of the players that you worked with, Jack, were really interesting to me, because over the last 30 years or so that I've watched baseball intently, I think Daniel Murphy is one of the really truly great hitters that I saw when he was really at the top of his game. What was it like working with him? And I imagine you worked with him mostly in the Mets minor league system.
I didn't hear who you mentioned.
Daniel Murphy.
Oh yes, yeah, Murphy. I didn't see him one-on-one too much. He spent all of about one ball game with us in AAA when we were based out of New Orleans, and then he got his call up. But of course, working in spring training and instructional leagues, Daniel was just a natural to be able to get the barrel to the ball. He understood what he needed to do. Sometimes he would get a little too analytical sometimes and overanalyze some things, and we had to remind him, just, you're so good, Daniel, just go out and do what you do and don't overthink it. But very few people have that ability to really just get the barrel to the ball consistently. And Daniel, unfortunately for the injuries, probably cut his career a lot shorter than he would have liked, and he probably could have played. But very, very good hitter, and definitely someone I would have wanted up there with a game on the line, no question about that.
One of the guys who's with the Mets currently right now, he might be on the IL right now, but he's a young hitter that I think the world of, is Michael Conforto. You worked with him a bit in the minor leagues, getting them ready for the major leagues?
Yeah, I had Michael. He skipped AAA the year he went from Binghamton up to the big leagues, and then kind of broke on stage in the World Series that year for the Mets. But he did come back to AAA one time that he needed to get some, just kind of clear his head and get some things done. And he and I got to work. And he came in the door and walked into my office and said, "When can we start?" And I said, "First of all, sit down, and we're going to start with a talk." And we talked for about 20 minutes about where he was with his head and his mental approach, and not just what he wanted to get done to get back to the big leagues and kind of fix some things, but I asked him what I could do for him and reminded him that I was going to give him my opinion on what I think, my thought was what had kind of gotten him into a little bit of a struggle. And after that 20 minutes, he totally agreed. We went to work, and Wally Backman was there as our manager at the time, and Wally was very good to help with the confidence and give in his 2 cents here and there. And Michael got back to the way Michael was, and the only reason he did that was because I got him to remember, do what you do, and that's what got you to the big leagues. There was a time where he started maybe trying to do too much or be a different type of hitter, and but he's a really good, almost like a natural type player. I could see right away the reason the Mets drafted him number 1. And I tell you what, he was a better outfielder than people thought when he first got to us. One of the knocks on him was he wasn't good defensively and he couldn't throw very well. But I don't know why people said that, because he's a pretty darn good outfielder too.
There's a player that a lot of people forget that the Baltimore Orioles had, that you worked with when he got to the Mets and the Orioles. And I think it was Andy McPhail. It could have been somebody before him, but we made a trade where we traded Ramon Hernandez, the Cincinnati Reds, and we got Justin Turner and Ryan Friel back in the deal. And Justin Turner sort of had a cup of coffee with the Orioles in the minor leagues and then moved on to the Mets. And he started to play much better with the Mets, and he's become close to a superstar with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Been very instrumental in them being what they are now. What was he like to work with as a hitter?
Justin was a grinder. He was another guy that would come in, get his work, Definitely not afraid to step into my office and say, "Hey, I know you're having lunch right now, but can we go out to the cage?" So I'd set my lunch down and we go out to the cage and we'd start working on stuff. But yeah, Justin is another one that he just went out and played. He was a ball player, and he loved the game. He loved to go out and compete, and he still does, obviously. And you know, I love the time I had with him in Buffalo when the Mets were there for their AAA, and
Right.
he had a great year for us there in Buffalo. You know, obviously, I don't know what the front office things going on were that year when he was non-tendered, basically. But I'm glad Justin had another opportunity somewhere, and I'm glad he was able to get with somebody who he was able to show what type of player he could be and what he could do for a community and for a ball club.
But would you say that Justin was a product of the amount of work that he put in? He was not a naturally gifted hitter the way like a Murphy or a Conforto would be.
Well, I think the thing that helped Justin the best was, like I said, he was a grinder. I mean, if he didn't do as well as he wanted to do, he wanted to figure it out so he could go out and do it better the next day. And that's the way he's always been. And I can see it in the way he competes when I do get a chance to see him play with the Dodgers. And you know, I use him as an example with a lot of my students in here that, you know, here's someone who, you know, might not be, you know, the prototypical power hitter type person that's going to be in the middle lineup, but he knows what he needs to do with his swing. He knows what he needs to do to be on time, to get the barrel to the ball. And he also, now it looks like to me, he can feel when he gets out of that and get right back to it, but sooner rather than later. And that's what makes the good hitters, really good hitters, is not letting those bad streaks go on for too long.
Yeah. We're talking with Jack Voigt. His Twitter is jvoigt, Voigt baseball, and his Facebook page is the same, jvoigt baseball. If you live in the Sarasota area and are interested in bettering your game, get in touch with Jack Voigt. Jack, I want to ask you not a hypothetical, but I know you haven't worked with Jared Kelenic, but here's a guy who made a big pretense that he thought he was being sort of manipulated out of coming right up to the major leagues, and then it was backed up by that assistant general manager or front office person who ended up getting fired by admitting that, oh, we're not going to bring Kelenic and Logan Gilbert up. They'll be up after their time so we can control them. But Kelenic did end up coming up. He's 0 for his last 39. I think he's hitting under 100. He's the number 3 prospect in all of baseball. Very rarely do the experts make a mistake on that. If you were his AAA hitting coach right now, what would you do with Jared Kelenic? Because he was just optioned out back to the Rainiers.
You know, that's kind of tough to answer, Stan, because I don't know. I never
Yeah.
saw Kelenic when he was with the Mets.
Okay.
He came after I had left. And I don't know really what his makeup is or his work ethic. Obviously, you get to the big leagues, he must have done some work somewhere. He was a high pick, and he's worked hard to get there, and I'm sure he's going to work just as hard to get back. But as I would tell most players that I'm with in AAA, whether they're going to go to the big leagues or not, is remember who you are, remember what got you to this level, and then the way you move on to the next level is to become more consistent at what you've been doing. I know from personal standpoints, when I left Baltimore as a player, when I was traded from Baltimore to the Rangers after Doug Melvin and Johnny Oates, rest Johnny's soul, had gone over to Texas, they traded for me. And the biggest mistake I made was trying to do something or do things that wasn't what Jack Voigt was, to prove to all the people in Texas why they were trading for me. I had, one of my worst years I'd ever had at the major league level because I wasn't being myself. And it wasn't until it was too late that I realized I didn't need to do anything more. They were trading for me to get me back for what I had done for them in Baltimore already.
Yep.
I didn't need to do any more.
Yep.
And I think sometimes as players, when we go to another level, we make it too difficult. We start trying to do too much, and now you get out of who you are, and you get away from actually what got you the call up to the major leagues. And it's a tough adjustment, Stan. It is. I mean, you go from AAA to the big leagues. I mean, you're facing every AAA team's number one guy just about every night in the big leagues, and the defenses are better, and the scouting reports are better, and everything else. So it's an adjustment, especially for a young player. And I wish him nothing but the best to get back and get his work in. And as far as any young player that goes up and tends to maybe struggle a little bit, don't take it personal. If you don't want to get mad, you just want to get better, and that's the way you got to keep at it.
It's funny. I had forgotten that he was a Mets prospect when I asked you that. So I wasn't asking, had you worked with him? I was asking about a hitter coming to you back in the minor leagues after sort of a devastating failure, because for a lot of these players, it's the first time they've failed is when they get to the big leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, that's pretty much what we worked with Conforto. It wasn't that he was really struggling because he had failed up there. He had just kind of gotten into a situation with his approach and his mental and his swing where he kind of needed a fresh break and get out of the New York media and out of the limelight, so to speak, a little bit, and just kind of recharge his batteries mentally. Physically, he always had the same talent. He was the same guy. It was just he learned to relax a little more and not press. And it's amazing sometimes how much better we all can do at anything in life when you don't press and you just relax and trust what you've learned.
Jack Voigt, our guest. Jack, we could talk for hours about different things, but I know you wanted to say some things about the state of the game today. One of the things that really bothers me, and I know you want to get some things off your chest, but is home plate umpiring. And I am so looking forward to the electronic umpiring, which is down the road, probably another 2 to 3 seasons. I think we'll have it in the major leagues. Are you a proponent of that or an opponent of that?
Well, I don't know if I'm for or against. I think everybody involved in the game is for getting everything right. Get the calls correct. But this is not a perfect world in anything we do. There's going to be some mistakes here and there. You just hope that any mistakes that are made aren't going to affect outcomes. But sometimes that's what makes baseball is can you overcome some of those outcomes, or one reason or another. My opinion, not really knowing the whole situation on what the strike zone is going to be able to do, but I think, again, my thought, if it was me looking at this from the outside in, I think you're going to see more hitters complain about this electronic strike zone than you will pitchers. And the reason I say that, and unless they're talking about making different adjustments to how they're going to structure, the eagle eyes or the lasers or whatever they're going to use, the rule book basically calls the strike zone the cylinder of the area above home plate from the hollow of the knee to the midpoint between the belt and the, basically call it, just below your pectorals. Okay. So if that's the case, but you're looking at that cylinder that goes here, and it goes upwards and depth wise from the front of the plate to the back point, you look at some of these, graphics that they'll show on some of the different networks that they have, you literally could see, and just an example, a really big 12-6 Clayton Kershaw breaking ball that clips the bottom front part of that cylinder, and the catcher either catches it right behind the plate, almost like a slow pitch softball pitch, or it might catch the dirt a little bit. And people are going to say, well, that ball's low. No, it caught the very sliver part of that front part of the zone on the bottom. You could see a right-handed sidearm pitcher that throws a slider, throws that frisbee we always talked about, and it barely catches the outside front edge corner of that cylinder, and you've got a catcher reaching across to get it and looks terrible, but yet it's going to have clipped the front edge of that cylinder. It really could be strange when you talk about the depth of that plate being, 18 inches deep from front to the back point.
Right.
It's going to be interesting on how they set that up.
The thing that attracts me to it is I think that the pitcher who is putting himself at risk on any given pitch that he can get hurt, and I know the batter can too, but I think he deserves a predictable strike zone that if on a Tuesday night and it's I'm trying to think of the name, Darryl Cousins is behind home plate. Well, on Saturday against Tim Timmons, doesn't he deserve the same strike zone? The knowledge that what worked for him on Tuesday night is going to work for him on Saturday night.
Well, sure. And again, I think the umpires do a pretty darn good job for what they're asked to do.
Yep.
Split second decisions. You got, all the speed and the depth of breaking balls now, and the break. Not just side to side, but diagonally through the zone and different things. I think they've done a pretty good job overall now, and they have their grading systems that they have to go through and everything else. And, I'm not privy to any of that information, but I think I heard somebody at one point say that most of the time they're, the majority of the umpires that doing home plate jobs were at about 95 to 97%. That's pretty darn good if you're calling that many pitches in a full game, well over 200, maybe over 250 pitches.
Right.
That's not many mistakes you're making. So, and some of the mistakes that they might make really weren't mistakes, but everyone thinks they were. But when you go back and look at it, they were right. So, I think they do a pretty good job for a pretty tough and stressful job that they're being asked to do in spur of the moment decisions.
One of the things that has come up, and it kind of came out of nowhere, and I guess, Jack, you'd know better than I, but I'm guessing 10, 12 years ago, is this pitch framing, which I kiddingly call cheating. And you called it presentation. Your thoughts on pitch framing, and will the electronic eye put them out of business, the pitch framer out of business?
Well, I think if you go to electronic strike zone, the ball has already gone through whatever measuring device they're going to use for the strike zone by the time it gets to the catcher. So I don't think that's going to have anything to do with it. Again, it might make the machine look really good, or it might make the machine look really bad, depending on how a catcher reacted to a certain, type of pitch. But, pitch framing, I would like to call it pitch presentation, maybe more than pitch framing. That's what a lot of the catchers are taught, is how to present the pitch that they've caught. Very little body movement, just kind of a little bit of a sway, a little bit of a turn here and there, not much. We're not talking about some of the high school and college stuff we used to see where they snap the ball down or snap the ball up and things like that. But some guys are really good at it, and a lot of them are being taught certain ways to do it, more relaxed ways. And you get a lot of players now that are down on one knee to maybe they think maybe give the umpire a better look at certain pitches, or sometimes to kind of block the umpire a little bit and give your pitch presentation a little bit better look to them when they're one way or another. The thing that bothers me, and people used to do it. Tony Pena used to be down on his butt with his legs
Right.
sticking out and things like that. And Gary Carter used to be down on a knee back in the day and things like that. But you never saw these guys do it with runners on base. And that's tough for me, because I've seen a lot of balls this year that were not blocked with runners on base because the catcher was on the one knee. And I think, unless I missed it wrong, didn't I see John Means lose a perfect game on a strike three because a catcher didn't even drop to block a ball that went right through the file?
Yep. And you're saying,
and that's not a blame on the catcher. It's just thinking
It's-
the way
it's-
the game is. I mean, I'm expecting to block any. If that ball's going to bounce 50 feet, I'm going to do everything I can to block it because my pitcher out here's got a perfect game.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The 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 electronic umpiring. I wonder if you agree with me that it will have the unintended consequence of cleaning up what Major League Baseball has tried to figure out for 15 years is how to speed the game up a little bit. I think with a more predictable strike zone night in and night out, and not anybody to gripe about with strikes and balls, that the game's going to move along much more crisply. You agree, or you think I'm full of it?
Well, in theory, it should. You still have to get the ball and get on the mound and throw. I think that's one thing. Taking way too much time between pitches. I think that could be cleaned up. I don't know. We used pitch clocks in AAA in the Pacific Coast League when I was out there, and we never seemed to have any trouble with it. I mean, it was get the ball, get on the mound, get your sign, and go. The guys who did have trouble with it typically were the guys either coming back down from the big leagues, and even if they were on a rehab assignment, they had to adhere to those rules. They didn't like it because they weren't used to it. But once guys figured out, get the ball, go, or hitters get in the box and let's get ready to go. I didn't see it as a big problem. I think what might help speed the game up a little bit is, and I understand pitching is getting a lot. The mile per hours are up and the spin rates are up, and now they're talking about different things with the tacky type things for the fingers and all that. But as far as hitting goes, when you have one approach to hit, there's no more really thought of contact, move guys over, shorten up with 2 strikes, spread out a little bit, use the other side of the field. When everything is basically stay on that back leg and see how far you can hit it, and hopefully you catch up to it when they throw it at 98. I mean, there's going to be a lot of swings and misses, and until the game comes back to putting emphasis on putting the ball in play to force action and to force the defense to make plays, it's going to continue to be like it is. It's either a strikeout or a pop-up or a home run. It seems like there's no in between anymore. The nuances of the game that kept people around just aren't there anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know that's one of the things you wanted to talk about, this the state of the game today. It's got somebody like a Theo Epstein who made his mark in baseball by being kind of cutting edge and being on the edge of these analytics and everything. He's trying to work now to return the game to some of the things you're talking about, because the game doesn't have enough action in it really today, does it? To hold fans' attention.
Who did you
The-
say is trying to bring things back like that? I missed that first part.
Theo Epstein, who's now working for the commissioner.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I read and I saw some of Theo's things after he left, even possibly admitting that he might have been one of the proponents or one of the people at the beginning that might have started some of this stuff because they got so based on analytics and what things were going to do. Again, there's always a place in this game of baseball for numbers. I mean, that's what this game is. It's based on averages, and averages are made from things that have already happened. That's what this game is about. I understand that they try and use some of these analytics to predict what could be happening next, especially when it comes to player contracts and what is what's a market value for somebody like this based on some of these things that have happened. But yet when you really don't have, you have a median area that they say, for example, a 100 rating for a player is major league average. So if they're 80, if they're only an 85, they're 15% below the major league average, or if they're a 115, they're 15% above. But where are you taking that 100 number from? You're taking everybody's things together, but you're saying everybody should be into this certain area. But yet, what about that role player that, and I'll use myself as an example.
Yeah,
Someone
Jack
who
Voigt.
wasn't going to
Jack
get the
Voigt.
total opportunities to, yeah, you're not going to get 450 or 500 at bats in a season. You're going to be limited to the time you're in there. And okay, sure, my number's not going to be major league average because I'm not one of those guys. But yet, if I'm at an 85 with my role, is my role of an 85, maybe 125 if you compared me with all the other guys that do the same role that I would do. The thing is, everybody's being lumped together, and you have players that are trying to be in that upper above 100 range, but to do it, they have to try and do things that aren't part of their game. Hit 25, 30 home runs. There's some guys that are trying to hit 25, 30 home runs in the big leagues that didn't hit more than 8 in the minor leagues. So you think you're going to try and hit 25 or 30 in the major leagues? I mean, that's going to get you back down to the minor leagues pretty quickly if you don't find out quickly who you are as a player and what you did to get to the big leagues to be that player.
Jack, one of the other aspects that's changed in the game over, I think it's been over about 14 or 15 years. I was listening to a Tampa Bay baseball game during spring training, and they were talking about the average left-handed hitter in Major League Baseball in 2006 hit, I believe it was 272, and it kept going down to where last year I think they hit about 235. I think after watching Chris Davis in Baltimore the past 7 or 8 years, or 10 years actually, but see what's destroyed his career, I think history will look at the shift is what kind of destroyed Chris Davis as a big time hitter, because it was so debilitating to him to constantly be going 0 for 4, and he never tried to change up things. But could you comment on what you think about shifting and how unfair it really is to the left-handed hitter, because they don't shift the same way against right-handed hitters?
Well, I think shifts have always been a part of the game.
Yep.
I mean, you knew. I mean, again, I hate to keep going back in the day because it was a different time back then, and things. So I don't want people to think that this is wrong, but we did have spray charts back then. It's just they were all handwritten with little colored pencils and a ruler, and they were kept in a notebook on the bench. And it was our job before the game as outfielders or infielders to look at those notebooks and see, based on who our pitcher was that game, softer thrower, harder thrower, whatever, where we needed to adjust based on where, these people tended to hit the ball that we were going to play that day or that night for 9 innings. And so we always had, little things here and there. Granted, they weren't as severe as they are now, or as, specific with where they are, but yet they're still putting the defense in certain positions where that hitter has shown over the course of the season or over the course of his career where he tends to hit the ball the most.
Yep.
I don't see a problem with that, because you're trying to win a game and your defense is out there trying to win a game, and the pitcher and everything else. If you don't like it, learn to hit the ball the other way. All you got to do is do it a couple times, and then they'll start to straighten that shift back up.
Yeah.
Okay. I know some guys say, well, I'm not going to change my way. I'm not saying change your way. I'm saying if they're going to give you some pitch, if it's a left-handed pull hitter and they're playing all the guys over on the other side, and they're giving you the left side of basically the shortstop, third base side of the field, for me, maybe until 2 strikes, once in a while, I'm going to look for a ball on the outer part of the plate, and I'm just going to shoot it the other way. All I've got to do, because now a pitcher probably missed his spot.
Right.
I would bet if they're playing pull on a left-handed hitter, that pitcher is supposed to be throwing the ball middle to middle in to get the guy to pull to hit it into the defense. I mean, saying people can't shift, it would be like in the NFL going up and telling a quarterback, Tom Brady here in Tampa Bay, that'd be like having Tom Brady going up, and when he gets up and views the defense, he's not allowed to audible. Well,
Right.
what is that? I
Right.
mean, he's
Right.
reading the defense, and
Right.
now he wants to change the play. So the defense is reading the offense in this situation with a shift, and that's what they're doing. If the offense, if the hitter wants to change the play, now he needs to find an option to go do something else. I get it. Sometimes it might not be that easy for certain guys, but you know, that's what they're doing. That they're playing that way. You got to live with that. You can't go over and complain to the other coach that there's too many guys on that side of the field. It's not fair. Figure it out. Figure it out.
We're talking with Jack Voigt, ex-Major League Baseball player, 7-year Major League career, 17 years in coaching. Jack, we could go on for a good while, but we're having some technical difficulties. We've gotten through them. I'd love to have you back on sometime and talk more in detail of some of these issues that are changing the game or where the game needs to change.
Stan, I'd love to have it. I always loved you guys up there. I remember doing a lot of radio things with you right after batting practice before before the games up there in Camden Yards, and
Yeah.
And all the fans and everything up there. It was nice to see their offense get back to going again last night and over the weekend. And you know, I have had a chance to meet with some of the players and the coaches here during spring training once in a while, and good bunch of guys. They all want to compete, and the fans of Baltimore deserve the best. But the fans in Baltimore, I loved playing there.
Well,
I really did, and I
that was at
appreciate
a
everything
time you played at
that
a
they gave me.
time where the team wasn't necessarily great, but it was a transition period. But the fans were really excited. They had been from 1979 into about 2000.
Yeah,
So for about 21-year period, Baltimore was one of the best baseball cities in the league. Jack, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that you're doing 50 and 60 kids a week. Keep up the good work with J Voigt Baseball, and we'll get you on again. Okay.
I appreciate it. And if people want to check out what's here, we're on the internet there at 941diamondacademy.com. Social medias are on there, and the J Voigt Baseball. So, you know, if you're down this way, love to have you stop in and see if we could let you guys hit for a while.
Well, hopefully next year, with things getting back to normal, I'll be back in Sarasota for spring training, and I'll visit you with you and our mutual friend, Tim Tremblay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll get you in there. I'll check out what can go on.
He still thinks he's a baseball player.
You and I are brothers now. See, we can do this together with
I know.
with the hair. So we'll
Hey,
get together.
it's good catching back up with you after a long time, Jack. Thank you for doing this.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Sorry for the technical issues. We'll do it again.
Okay. That's Jack Voigt. Want to remind you that Press Box Live has been brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. Again, their website is c3america.com. I know these guys. I like these guys, and I trust these guys. And again, as I say, each and every Zoom that I do, that's sponsored by C3 American Exteriors. If you own a home, you're going to have no greater costs to incur fixing a roof or replacing a roof. You want to have people you know and trust. And I know these guys and I trust these guys. You'll like them too. C3 American Exteriors. Ross Grimsley couldn't be here tonight. Gary Stein can't be here Wednesday night. We're going to be talking about the BMW Classic with somebody involved on from the PR standpoint on this Wednesday evening. We'll be doing that at 6 o'clock. It'll be on Facebook Live. And then, of course, the next morning presented on PressBoxOnline.com. And don't forget, you can enjoy the Glenn Clark Show every day from 10 to 12 at PressBox Online, PressBoxOnline.com/radio. All right, for the folks at C3 American Exteriors and my good friend Jack Voigt, we'll see you down the road Wednesday night when we'll talk about the upcoming BMW Classic coming to Caves Valley in August, a big time golf tournament in Baltimore. Good night, everybody.